All right, let's try something wild. We're going to take a heavyweight classic of literature, Goethe's Faust, and smash it together with one of the most explosive thinkers in history, Friedrich Nietzsche. We're looking at a timeless story through a very dangerous lens.
Really, think of this as a conversation between two massive ideas, separated by a century, but both obsessed with what it means to be human and to strive for more. So what happens when we do this? What new layers pop out of Goethe's masterpiece? Trust me, the answers might just flip how you see this story on its head.
So, where do we start? Well, Goethe doesn't throw us into heaven or some dusty scholar's library. Nope. We start in a theater. And this first prologue, the Prelude in the Theater, is basically a perfect little snapshot of a fight that is still raging today. The battle between real art and just making a quick buck.
On stage, you've got three main players. There's the director, the money guy who just wants to sell tickets and please the crowd. You've got the poet, the pure artist who couldn't care less about the audience and just wants to create something eternal. And then there's the clown, the performer who's kind of stuck in the middle, trying to make it all work. A classic conflict, right?
But here's where it gets really interesting. The moment we put on our Nietzschean glasses, these guys aren't just job titles anymore. Oh no, they become powerful symbols, symptoms of a society's health or its sickness. They're a diagnosis of the modern soul. So check this out. From Nietzsche's point of view, the super-practical director, he's the last man, a symbol of absolute mediocrity. The idealistic poet, he gets recast as the decadent, a beautiful but ultimately weak spirit. And the clown of all people, he actually becomes the unexpected hero, the true creative spirit.
So, what the heck is a last man? For Nietzsche, this was basically the stuff of nightmares. It's a person, or a whole society, that has totally forgotten how to struggle. All they want is comfort, safety, and mindless amusement. That's the director to a T. He's not interested in greatness, he just wants to serve up some spiritual junk food to keep the herd happy.
And this showdown really lays out the core tension. The poet sounds noble, but Nietzsche would call him decadent. Why? Because he's allergic to the messiness of real life. He's stuck in his head, wishing for some lost golden age. The clown, on the other hand, gets it. He dives right into the chaos. He mixes high and low, he embraces foolishness, and he connects with that raw, messy, powerful energy of life. That's what Nietzsche called Dionysian joy.
All right, buckle up. We're leaving the theater and heading straight to the top floor, heaven itself. This is where we get that legendary wager between the Lord and the devil, Mephistopheles, for Faust's soul. But you guessed it, through a Nietzschean lens, this is not going to be a simple good versus evil bedtime story.
And this interpretation is absolutely radical. The Lord, this kind and gentle figure, actually represents a kind of cosmic complacency. He stands for safety, order, a comfortable illusion. And Mephistopheles, the devil, he's not the villain. He's the catalyst. He's the force of chaos and dissatisfaction that stops humanity from falling asleep at the wheel.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Goethe puts this idea right in God's own mouth. He literally admits that humans, left to our own devices, get lazy. We crave unqualified repose, total comfort. He knows he needs a devil around just to stir the pot and force us to grow. So Mephistopheles' real job isn't damnation, it's motivation. Think of him as our cosmic personal trainer. He's here to poke us out of our comfort zone, to make us dissatisfied, and ultimately to light that fire inside us that Nietzsche called the will to power, that deep, fundamental drive to overcome and create.
Which brings us, finally, to our main man. With all this cosmic drama going on, where does Dr. Faust himself fit in? Who is this guy, really?
Well, to get Faust, you have to understand Nietzsche's most famous and probably most misunderstood idea, the Übermensch, or Overman. Now, forget the comic book stuff. This isn't about physical strength, it's about a state of being. It's the person who looks at the world's rules and values and has the courage to say, I can do better, and then creates new ones, using struggle as the very tool for self-mastery.
And that, right there, is Faust. He is the living embodiment of dissatisfaction. He's learned everything you can learn from books, and he's realized it's all empty. That's not a sin. In this view, it's the seething fire of the will to power. He's not a last man looking for comfort. He's the potential overman, willing to gamble his own soul just to feel and become something more.
So all of this leads us to the absolute core of the play.
the actual bet between Faust and Mephistopheles. And this is where the connection to Nietzsche's philosophy gets almost spooky, particularly to his incredible thought experiment of eternal recurrence.
So the terms of the bet are crystal clear. Mephistopheles wins Faust's soul if, and only if, he can give Faust a single moment of such perfect happiness that Faust actually wants to freeze time and make it last forever. For a guy like Faust, whose whole identity is built on never being satisfied, he thinks, no problem, bring it on.
Now think about Nietzsche's ultimate test. He asks you to imagine that you had to live your entire life over again, exactly as it was, with every single victory and every single crushing heartbreak, an infinite number of times. Could you look at all of that and scream, yes, again, forever? That is the ultimate yes to life. Not just the good parts, but all of it.
And there it is. That's the connection. Faust's bet is basically the eternal recurrence test in story form. To wish for one perfect moment to last forever is to say no to the rest of life, to all the struggle, the pain, the change, the growth. A true overman wouldn't trade the entire messy journey for one single moment of peace. They'd want to hit replay on the whole crazy movie, forever.
So, what do we see when we pull back and look at this whole philosophical mashup? We see a version of Faust that's way more modern, way more psychologically deep than just a simple story about good and evil.
The entire conflict just shifts. It's not about angels versus demons anymore. It becomes a story about the relentless, messy, beautiful human drive to keep pushing forward versus the comfortable, safe, soul-killing desire to just stop. The real evil in this reading isn't temptation, it's complacency.
Nietzsche's whole spirit is captured in this idea from his character Zarathustra. The goal isn't to pray for an easy life, for an end to your problems. The goal is to pray for the strength to handle a hard life, and to find the joy and meaning right there, in the middle of the struggle.
And that's the thought I want to leave you with. We're all taught to chase happiness, to find contentment, to solve our dissatisfaction. But what if that's all wrong? What if that restless feeling inside you, that sense that there has to be more, isn't a flaw? What if it's the most powerful and divine part of you, the very engine of human greatness? What if it's the fire that saves us from becoming the last man?